DHEA, what is it? Do we need it? Will it help us? Stay tuned.
I created Species Nutrition with one mission in mind: to provide bodybuilders and serious athletes with no-nonsense supplements that work. I put my name and reputation on every bottle of Species Nutrition products. If you want to be your absolute best, join the evolution.
Energy pouches are the wave of the future, and Underrated Muscles Locked In is first to bring it to you. With between 50 and 100 milligrams of caffeine per pouch, you can dial in the quick, clean energy and focus you need on the go. Simple, easy to use. Pop one between your cheek and gum to get you through your day, to get you through your workout. Code RX20, underratedmuscle.com. Get locked in today.
All right, television, RxMuscle.com. This is Ask Dave, your weekly question and answer show with Dave Palumbo. Bodybuilding, non-bodybuilding, diet, training, supplementation. This is your forum to ask Dave whatever is on your mind. I'm your host, Sadiq Faruqi, thanking you for joining us on this New Year's Eve edition of Ask Dave. A reminder, tonight at midnight, I'm not going to tell you exactly what it is, but we have a sale launching at speciesnutrition.com. You're not going to want to miss it. It's only going to be a one-day sale, so you're only going to have 1 day to take advantage of this first opportunity of 2026. Before we go to the questions, Dave, we received word at some point last night that truly iconic photographer Bill Dobbins had passed away. I know you've known him for the better part of 4 decades now, so if you wanted to reflect on the passing of the iconic photographer Bill Dobbins.
Yeah, not 4 decades, 3 decades, but I'll tell you this: Bill was one of the first guys I ran into, at the first national show I did. Bill's been, photographing people since Arnold's day, and matter of fact, a lot of people don't realize that Bill Dobbins wasn't just a photographer; he actually is the guy who wrote and put together Arnold's encyclopedia. So I think a lot of bodybuilders probably have that Arnold's encyclopedia in their bookshelf. Bill Dobbins did that book, not Arnold. I mean, Arnold obviously contributed to the content of it. Bill wrote it, put all the photography together for that thing, and that's like I said, a very, very well known first book for a lot of people who are getting into bodybuilding, especially when people did read books. But I think a lot of guys even today have that book. So Dobbins did that, and he was kind of really more known toward the end of his life, second half of his life, as a female bodybuilding photographer because he liked to photograph all those women, and he had a few books he put together of pictures of them, and he had a really popular website at one point as well. And when Muscle and Fitness and Flex Magazine were around, Bill did all the women's bodybuilding photography for that, because a lot of people don't realize, because they only know the last 6 months of our industry, but at one point for many, many years, it was just women's and men's bodybuilding. That's all there was. The women bodybuilders look like the bikini girls of today, but that's all there really was back then. And Bill was a instrumental guy in that. He actually did photograph a lot of men too. People don't realize that because they know him as a women's bodybuilding photographer, but he did some really good photo shoots. He actually shot me for when I worked for Metrics. They wanted to get 8x10s, for us to sign at all the events, and he did a lot of the PR stuff for that. And I know he shot some decent pictures of me for that when I was at my biggest, and they used a lot of those pictures for marketing for Metrics. It's a shame, a lot of people don't realize Bill actually had cancer 4 times. He beat it. I think he had Hodgkin's lymphoma, and he was on his deathbed at least 3 times during his life that I knew, because I would see him and I'd be like, "What's going on, Bill?" And he'd be like, "Oh, I got cancer again." I'm like, "What?" And he was really positive about it. He goes, "Yeah, I'm going to beat it. I got to do chemotherapy," and his hair was falling out. And sure enough, and a year later, the guy was back and shooting things again. He was very resilient. I don't know how he had such a positive mindset about that. And if you knew any women who ever shot with him, he would make it a whole day event. Like the women would get there and he'd be playing his guitar and he'd have to play music to get himself in the mood. And then he'd have to like start, then the shooting would begin. It would be like 12 hours of shooting. And that was just what he was known for. And it was torturously long, but he always got really good content from these women. So he was a unique guy. He's definitely going to be missed, I know, by our industry. And it's a shame that, he had to go, but he was not a young guy. And like I said, he'd been around a long time. He had a lot of health issues and I know he'll be missed. And I used to enjoy talking to him at all the shows because he had so many stories because like I said, he was around since Arnold's day when he was competing and he bridged 4 or 5 decades of bodybuilding. And that's pretty amazing to have that level of insight into how the industry came about, the evolution of it, and where it was going. And he had some very strong opinions, and he wasn't afraid to put those forward. But and that might have gotten him in trouble a few times. But like I said, I'll miss his friendship, and I'll miss seeing him at the shows. And he's probably in a better place right now playing that guitar. So, Bill, we miss you.
Of course, we pass along our deepest condolences to Bill's family, friends, and obviously all the bodybuilding, the lives that he's touched over the last 30, 35 years in this sport. Let's go to the questions. The first 2 questions on the show from the Dave Palumbo Experience app. Do you feel that there's any truth in the study that shows muscle protein synthesis elevated 48 hours after training, thus more frequent training and lower volume would yield better hypertrophy compared to training a muscle once a week?
I don't really know what, first of all, I haven't read the study, but I don't really know what having a boost in protein synthesis 48 hours after training would have to do with training more often. It doesn't really, I'm not understanding the logic behind that. If you break down a muscle, you have to give it time to recover. Okay. And everyone's recovery process is different. Like Ronnie Coleman used to train each body part twice a week, and he seemed to recover fine from the workouts. I know that my body needed a full week for sure to recover. And, when we all first start training, we want to train each body part like 3 times a week if we can, because we're so excited and we think that the more we work out, the faster we'll grow. And I think that's, when you get into bodybuilding, you get bit by that bodybuilding bug, you want to grow as fast as possible. And it's sometimes hard to understand the concept that less is better in bodybuilding. In other words, stimulate that muscle and then go home and eat and train and sleep and rest. That's what's building muscle. It's not the going in the gym. People always, and I made this erroneous assumption too. I thought that the actual training was building the muscle. It's the recovery that's building the muscle. So if you don't recover enough, you don't get big enough. And it's a hard pill to swallow because we think that we have to work out to get big. But the workout, it just breaks down the muscle. It's the repair process that's important. It's like the same reason why people think, oh, on my off day, I'll eat less food because I'm not working out. Well, on your off day, you're repairing muscle, just like you're repairing it every other day of the week because you're constantly breaking down muscle. So you want to continue the same amount of protein, the same amount of fats, the same amount of carbs to fuel the process of repair, right? So these are just ideas that people don't understand. Now, when the muscle actually peaks, its recovery process is you can study it all you want in the lab, but like I said, it's individual from person to person because some people just recover faster. If you're taking anabolic steroids and growth hormone, you're going to recover faster. So there's really no perfect, workout for everyone. You have to kind of figure out what works for you. But what I find is that most people who train multiple times a week, one body part, they don't tend to recover as well and they don't grow as well. They might psychologically feel good about it, but they don't tend to grow as well. In my experience over the last 25, 30 years, it seems as though one body part per week, seems to work the most effectively. And that's just the way I see it.
Second question, again, these first 2 from the Dave Palumbo Experience app. I'm wondering what your thoughts are on DHEA. I'm from Canada, and it's not sold here, and it's pretty expensive to get through shipping costs, etc. I've read that it helps with mood and depression, especially as we age. Your thoughts on DHEA?
Yeah, DHEA is dihydroepiandrosterone, not to be confused with the DHT, dihydrotestosterone, which is what the body can convert testosterone into in men and women. And a lot of times we talk about high DHT levels causing prostate issues, acne, hair loss. This is not what we're talking. We're talking about DHEA, which is actually a hormone produced by the adrenal glands. It's an adrenal androgen, and it's produced in men and women. And in men, it has somewhat of a metabolism modulating effect and maybe immune system modulating effect. But testosterone kind of supersedes that in men. In women, because women don't have testicles and that they can't produce testosterone directly from the testicles, they make their testosterone from DHEA. So DHEA can convert to different hormones in a person's body. It can convert to testosterone in small amounts. It can convert to estrogen in small amounts. And in women, it's more important because that's their muscle building hormone. So I noticed that as we age, men don't produce as much testosterone from the testicles. A lot of men go on TRT, right? Women don't have that. And so I think the knee jerk lately has been to put women on testosterone. And I think that's a problem because I think in every woman's body, there's a certain ideal amount of testosterone that's going to give women a good effect, but not cause side effects. And it's hard to determine what that number is for each individual woman. So I think a lot of women take testosterone, they feel really good, but then start getting side effects from it because they're taking too much. Whereas if you take DHEA, you can actually, and the funny thing about DHEA is it's not illegal. It's not a controlled substance. You can buy it from Life Extension, makes a nice brand of DHEA. You can buy it on Amazon on their Life Extension website. And not that I'm plugging that one particular brand, but I know they have good products. And you could take that as your replacement. And then as a woman, if you take 25, 50 milligrams per day, your body will convert what it needs, not what you want it to have, what it needs into testosterone. And so when women tell me, or husbands call me and they say my wife the sex drive is low, or she's not recovering as well, or she doesn't feel, maybe she's getting sick more often, I tell them add 50 milligrams a day of DHEA, see how she feels. And a lot of times that helps. Now, this person lives in Canada, so I don't know what he seems to say there's a lack of availability there. For a man, I don't think you're going to notice that much difference. I gave my father some DHEA when he was in his 60s, and he said he felt a little better. I was giving him 100 milligrams a day of it. And then at some point, like when he hit, after maybe 5 years of doing it, he wasn't really noticing it. And then we put him on testosterone a little bit, 100 milligrams a week, and he felt good on that. So I think in today's day and age, you're better off just taking testosterone as a man. As a woman, the DHEA is a better option because once again, you're not going to get the side effects you would get from taking testosterone. So that's just the way I go about it. For a man, the immune system effects or the metabolism boosting effects of DHEA are very small compared to what a testosterone replacement dose will be. Now, a lot of people don't want to take testosterone, or they don't have access to it or whatever, or they don't want to be bothered with it. They don't want to spend the money on it. So I guess you can call DHEA the cheap man's testosterone replacement. But if you're in Canada, it's a pain in the ass. And I know Canada is weird with supplements and stuff like that. If it's not made there, they think that it's like a drug. And so it might be hard to get it there. You're better off just getting testosterone replacement from your doctor. Now, these two questions are from the Dave Palumbo Experience app, and I want to thank everyone. It is the last day of the year, and you guys have supported that app for the last 3 years. Every month we get more and more members for it, and it's because I'm providing basically a lot of information on a monthly basis. It's $29 a month. You download it from your iTunes store, your Android store. You get me as your coach in your back pocket. You have access to all my writings, all my videos I've done in an organized fashion, all my protocols, my drug protocols, my keto diet, my cyclical keto diet, my off-season diets, men, women, detoxification. I answer everyone's questions for the app in an open forum. So you see everyone's questions and answers. It's a really good learning experience. And I do a Q&A video just like this. It's like another Ask Dave every single week for the app members. So you get an extra video of that. And we're constantly updating with new information. So as new stuff comes out, you're getting new information, and it's a good way to keep up on the industry of what's new and out there and how to use it. So thanks for all the support over the years.
Let's go to the rest of our questions from our Instagram. Before that, hold on, my mistake. We have a special of the week from our friends at Titan Medical Center.
Yes.
So we have literally was
Everything.
literally
I think everything.
okay.
is on sale,
Okay.
right?
Yeah, some of this short form on text messaging. So blood peptides, everything. So they're running a whole panel special right now. So if you want to tell the fans more about what Titan Medical Center has in this 2026 year beginning special.
I think they're doing everything. Is that what I sent over to you?
Yeah.
I think they're doing blood work is still being discounted. So I got them to extend the blood work an extra week because I told them a lot of people were on vacation and away. So we're doing blood work. Every peptide is on sale, but you have to call or text to get the information. That's the key. So you got to call, go to TitanMedicalCenter.com. The phone number is on the website. Call them up. Tell them Dave Palumbo, RxMuscle sent you. You want the blood work panel discount. You want any of the peptides you want there. So that includes BPC 157, TB 500, the copper peptide, the combination, the glow, which all four of those peptides, those healing peptides. You can do the growth hormone releasing peptide therapies there, the GLP-1 agonist therapies. They're all on sale. Okay. It's a very brief sale, last day of the year type of thing. I think the rest of the week, call them up, mention it, get set up now, because what's going to happen is January is going to come around and you'll be like, oh, you know what? I got to get blood work done. I got to do this. And then you're going to wind up paying more for it. So they're doing a nice sale at the end of the year here until, next week. Call up, ask for it. And I'm telling you guys, get set up, get your blood work done. If you don't have insurance and you need to get it done now. If you want to buy your therapies, now's the time to do it. I just restocked on my glutathione I take every single day. Now I'm using the glow combination because I figure if I'm going to use BPC, I might as well get the TB 500 and the copper peptide in there as well. It's all in one. It's an easy shot, and I do my NAD plus there with them as well, which increases the ability of the mitochondria to work more effectively and gives you better mental focus and energy. Those are my favorite therapies, but you guys might want to try some of the GLP-1s because you're dieting for competitions. Get it now. It's on sale at TitanMedicalCenter.com.
So we go to the rest of our questions from our YouTube community page, from our Instagram page, and from our Facebook page. We do get a lot of questions, and it's not just us. This is seemingly the fascination across the board, bodybuilding and anyone looking for ways to increase their longevity, and that is peptides. Your most recommended peptides for men 50 and over when the goal is fat loss and building muscle, which seems to be the case for all of us.
This is like a perfect segue. I just talked about it. So for me, weight loss wise, I think a lot of people have trouble sticking to a diet. Okay. And you know what? I'm the kind of the mindset, I never cheated on my diet, unless I had a prescribed cheat meal set up. So for me, it was never an option to snack and eat extra food. But I know a lot of people have trouble with that. If that's something that you have trouble with, sticking to the diet because you're eating between meals or snacking, the GLP-1 agonists are tremendously effective. The retatrutide, or if you want to use the Mounjaro version, which is tirzepatide. They even have a new one coming out now. It has a fourth IGF-1 component to it. I don't know if I'm so in favor of that, but there's a lot of these GLP, 1 agonists, out there, which is really, a lot of these new ones, the retatrutide, the tirzepatide, they have added components, but the original GLP-1 agonist, which was an Ozempic, is really what's the most effective at eliminating appetite. For bodybuilders, we need the appetite control, or not me, but other people that cheat their diet need the appetite control. So what happens is that, by taking that, it allows people to stick to their diet better. If you're off season, however, you don't want to use these appetite, reducing agents, because number one, you're not going to be able to eat all your food. And number two, it slows the transit of food through your intestinal tract, which is going to limit your body's ability to recover. So you're going to recover slower on these. So I don't recommend doing that. But on a diet for contest, great. Those are the best, I think, the best fat burning. Some of these other ones that supposedly burn fat, AOD and Sloop and all these other ones, I haven't seen anyone who's losing massive amounts of body fat on these peptides. So I would stick with the ones that we know work, the GLP-1 agonists, as far as fat loss goes. You could take the growth hormone releasing peptides to increase GH release, but they're not going to release GH at a level where you're going to notice a tremendous amount of fat loss. You might recover better from your workouts. You might get a little better pump, but it's not like taking a shot of growth hormone where you're burning fat like that. To me, still, and these are not peptides, the most effective fat loss agents that we can use that directly stimulate fat loss would be clenbuterol and T3, which are not peptides, but for bodybuilders and people who compete, physique competitors, those are still the two most effective fat loss agents. The reason why the GLP-1 agonists work well is because a lot of people are just cheaters on the diet, and if you can stop the cheating because you don't feel as hungry, you're going to get better results. But by and far, as far as direct fat burning effects, clenbuterol and T3 is still the best.
Question about health phase. How long, duration-wise, should a health phase last after a cycle?
I hate the word health phase. I don't know who coined that. It's really kind of stupid because bodybuilding is a health. Anyone who's a bodybuilder is in a health phase. Now you can say, well, when you're on steroids, that's not healthy. But you know what? It's really not unhealthy either, unless you're doing massive, ridiculous amounts of them. So really, I call it like an off period or detoxification period, because that's really what it is. I mean, when you go off a cycle, you're just cleaning out of the cycle. I mean, you're just going off that. It's not really, you're no more healthy than when you were following bodybuilding, because bodybuilders and people who compete eat well all year round. I mean, it's just a matter of, are we going off a cycle? And I think that in order to clean out properly and detoxify your system, and reset your androgen receptors. Oh, there we go again. He's talking about those androgen receptors. I like to be off at least 8 to 10 weeks. I think that's ideal. Obviously, longer is only better, right? Because, I mean, if you're off a longer period of time, it's only going to help reset those receptors and make you feel better and, detoxify you more. But there's a certain diminishing returns. In other words, if you're off too long, you might start going backwards, So if your goal is to compete every year and try to improve yourself and get better, usually 8 to 10 weeks is adequate. Because if you do longer than that, then now you're cutting into your gains, your off-season gains that you're going to make. And then you might not have enough time to put on the muscle you need for the following year to compete and be better than you were the year before that. So I always say 8 to 10 weeks is ideal.
Question about, so we just had a question about peptides and about building muscle, losing weight. So we had another one. Oh my God. You know what? I'll take that one later. Let's take another one about GLP-1 drugs that lately have been removed from peptide sites. So now, again, if there are bans being put in place or lack of availability, there seem to be a whole range of GLP-1s that have magically vanished from the peptide sites.
I don't really, regularly, check out those or audit those, illegal, the gray market websites. So I don't know if it's a lack of availability and that's why they're taking on. I would have to imagine that's what it is. Because if you're selling peptides, illegally, which is 90% of the ones out there, these peptide sites are not legitimate sites. You can go on there. It's like an Amazon, website. You can buy whatever you want. I'll take one of these and one of those, and that's not how it works. You need prescriptions usually for that. Even when you go to like Titan Medical, you go to any of these rejuvenation companies, you got to get doctors writes a prescription for these things for you. They're not just handing them out. So on these gray market sites, the availability would be probably what limits whether they have it or not. So maybe China or wherever they're buying it from doesn't have a particular GLP-1 and they're using a different GLP-1. When you go to like a Titan Medical Center, they're compounding. They're making the stuff at a compounding pharmacy, and then the pharmacy is dispensing it according to the prescription that the doctor is writing for you. So the availability is better. Now, sometimes you can go to a pharmacy and get a doctor's prescription, and they're actually out of it because so many people want to be on these new drugs that that there's just not enough availability because everyone, doesn't want to stop eating. They want to just, take something to help them stop eating. As far as I know, there's no particular ban out there on like retatrutide or tirzepatide because I know that the compounding pharmacies still have it and it's available. So, and that's one of the great things about Titan Medical. They have a really good relationship with their compounding pharmacy, so they don't run out of it. Whereas regular pharmacists and pharmacies seem to be out of it. And like I said, I don't know about these gray market, peptide sites, why they may have one peptide but not another, but I would have to imagine its availability.
Your thoughts on post-contest rebound? Can you get similar effects without getting completely stage lean? What is, and I guess the second part of that, your craziest growth you've ever experienced during a rebound, and what's the craziest rebound you've ever seen?
Yeah. The funny thing is I always went off after every show because I figured out as soon as the show's over, I want to get off because I want to start recovering. And the rebound off the show never seemed to be affected by the fact of whether I went off or I stayed on. One year, I told you, there was 1 year in 97, I never went off because I had a lot of guest postings. And I didn't notice a better rebound. Matter of fact, I think my rebound was worse. So the super compensation that happens when you go from being 0% body fat to starting to eat again and train after a show seems to be unrelated to the drugs. And it's more related to the fact that you've deprived your body for so long that it wants to store after the show's over. And what it stores is dependent on what you subject your body to. So if you're a guy who's like, all right, the show's over, I'm taking 2 months off from the gym, because I know people who do that. Ronnie Coleman was doing that toward the end of his career. And Sean Ray would do that. Lavroni, those people didn't get a rebound. They didn't grow because of that. But if you're one of these people like me, the insane me, Monday morning, I was back in the gym training, not like a maniac initially, but I started training. So when you create a deficit or a stimulus for your body to want to build muscle because you're breaking down muscle in the gym and your body is in this super compensation mode of wanting to store, it's going to store the protein and fat and carbs you're eating as muscle. It's going to build muscle, in other words, whether you're on a ton of hormones or not. Now, let's face it also, you come off a show, the drugs in your system don't leave, on day one. It probably takes 3 or 4 weeks for them to come out of your system. So you're still theoretically on a cycle, even though you're not taking any more shots. So this super compensation that happens over the next, 4 to 8 weeks is unbelievable. And it seems to continue on. So here it is. You go off for 8 weeks after a show. You're building muscle the first 4 to 6 weeks at a very high rate because your body's super compensating. And then just when you hit that 6 to 8 week mark where you maybe start to taper off, you're starting your cycle again. And now you get a second phase of that super compensation of building muscle because now your body has all these hormones available that it didn't have for the last 8 weeks. And you're still eating really good because your appetite's great because you've cleaned out and you're not toxic. And you get another burst of growth. And I think that's another reason why it's important to clean out, because you're going to grow regardless of whether you stay on. People think, I got to stay on testosterone just so I can have that great rebound. No, you're going to rebound anyway and build muscle as long as you're going to the gym and training hard. And that's the key. And so my best year was from 94. And this is probably because I was injury-free, from 94 to 95. So I competed in April or maybe March or April. I think it was March because it was Easter of 94, Junior USA at 228 pounds. I came in third place in the heavyweight class. And then the following year, I competed in June at the Junior Nationals. So it was like a year and a couple months later at 258 pounds. So I gained 30 pounds of muscle in that 1 year because I was injury-free. I had a great year of training. I had a little extra time, so it was a little bit more than a year. And I had all my nutrition down pat, the drug cycles down. I had everything perfect, for that year. That was a perfect year, I have to say. It was the first year I went over 300 pounds, and I just had a really, really good training year. I made a huge difference. When I showed up at the Junior Nationals at 258, and there were no amateurs at that time competing at that weight, people were just mind blown. I remember Kevin Lavroni was like a guy I really looked up to, was at that show because it was in Washington, D.C. And he came up to me backstage. He's like, I've never seen anyone as lean as you. And he goes, and then that's when he wound up, started our relationship, and I started helping him the following year for the Arnold Classic. But it's it was all based on learning how to rebound properly off these shows. And the key component was it didn't matter. You have to clean out after a show. And matter of fact, it doesn't matter if you're on drugs or not, because the drugs in your system are enough. And the fact that you're just training and eating is key. Now, the question he asked, how lean do you have to get that super compensation going on? The leaner, the better. The leaner, the better. So if you get to 10% body fat, you're probably not going to rebound as well as if you got yourself down to nothing. Because what happens is when your body is suffering and it thinks it's starving, even though you're eating 6 times a day, but your body fat goes so low, your body doesn't know that. It thinks it's starving. You get a better super compensation effect afterwards. So the leaner, the better. That's the answer to your question.
Take a couple more questions. A question about test SIP. What is the main cause of test propionate that causes flu-like symptoms compared to test SIP? I know test prop is cheaper, but I've noticed it causes more injection soreness and 48-hour flu-like symptoms. That is a regular occurrence, but for whatever reason, I find guys prefer test prop over test sipionate.
Yeah. It's the propionate ester. In other words, testosterone is testosterone, right? And they have to link it to something so that your body can absorb it. Like testosterone suspension, for instance, which is just testosterone powder in water, has no ester. So it only lasts like a few hours in your system and then it's out. Testosterone propionate is a fast-acting ester that only lasts about maybe 24 hours in your system. So for some reason, guys think it's a better option pre-contest, because we all thought this, we were brainwashed into this, because it doesn't really stick around that long, so it doesn't have as much time to aromatize or convert to estrogen. That may or may not be true. It might convert quicker. We don't really know. And you know what the truth is? For some reason, the propionate ester irritates the area it's injected into. And in irritating it, number one, it causes injection site soreness. That's not the worst part. It elicits an immune system response. And the immune system, a lot of times, at least in like me and people who are very sensitive to it, the immune system thinks it's like some kind of like a foreign body, and it attacks it. And you get these flu-like symptoms because your body's releasing prostaglandins, which if you were to have the flu and it released the prostaglandins, you get the fever, the aches, the chills sometimes. And that's why if you ever take a shot of test propionate and get that, all you got to do is take 2 Tylenol and it goes away. Okay. At least while the Tylenol is working. So if you ever have an issue with propionate, you didn't know it, take 2 Tylenol. It's going to take it away, the problem away temporarily, and until your body works its way out of your system. I just said, you know what? It's not worth dealing with that propionate sensitivity. I just stopped using it, and I'll take a longer acting ester like a cypionate or an anthate ester. It's still testosterone. It doesn't matter. It might take a week or two longer to build up in your system, but once it's in your system and you're regularly taking it, it's irrelevant. It doesn't matter. And they both aromatize, as far as I'm concerned, at the same level. Prop aromatizes faster. Cypionate, because it releases slowly, aromatizes, but it aromatizes at a slower rate. So it all works out the same. And most of us who are competing, are taking, in my case, aromatase inhibitors. So we're preventing that from happening anyway. So I don't think there's any difference. The second half of my career, I never used propionate. I refused to deal with the pain. I always used cypionate or an anthate, and I looked just as good, probably better, and I never had any issues. And so my suggestion is, if propionate doesn't sit well with you, just don't use it. There's no reason for it. It's that testosterone is testosterone.
And that's going to do for this episode of As Dave. Reminder, tonight at midnight, we're going to have a sale at speciesnutrition.com. We'll send out a teaser later this evening, revealing a little bit more of the details, but it's going to be your first chance for 2026 to stock up and really get your year started off on the right path at speciesnutrition.com. 1 year New Year's Day sale. If you haven't already done so, subscribe below, hit the notification bell. You're not going to miss any of our segments, any of these shows, any of the programming that we have scheduled for this upcoming year, as well as really over the course of the next couple of weeks, we're going to begin our Arnold Classic coverage. Arnold Classic in March, beginning of March. So we are literally now 10 weeks out from that contest, and that's beginning of the IFBB Pro League calendar. If you like what you're watching, hit the like button, comment below, and as always, we appreciate all of your support. On behalf of Dave Palumbo, our entire team, I'm Sadiq Faruqi, wishing you a happy 2026. We'll see you next week.
Happy New Year, guys.